Welcome back, everybody. This is your Internet Wrestling Champion here, and today we're going to be discussing Backlash 2025. And let me tell you, this was one of the most entertaining pay-per-views I've seen in like half a year, I think. This shit was crazy. This has got to be one of the most shenanigans-riddled matches I've ever seen in my life, or pay-per-views I've ever seen in my life. Every single match on the card had some bonkers booking in it, and I loved every second of it. So I'm gonna start off with the first match. It was the Fatal 4-Way match for the US title between LA Knight, Drew McIntyre, Damian Priest, and Jacob Fatu. I don't know what I can say that you haven't already heard about this match. It was high octane from bell to bell. There was a lot of big spots in them. There was this one spot where, Damian Priest, I'm just becoming more of a fan of Damian Priest with every single match he's in. There was this one spot where Drew McIntyre actually hit Jacob Fatu with the Claymore and almost got the 3 count until Damian Priest pulled the referee out of the ring. And Drew McIntyre was just looking at him and he's like, "You gotta be kidding me." And he looks at Drew McIntyre and he gives him the hand signal for pretty much go fuck yourself, and then they just start brawling. They go into the crowd section and they get up on top of these crates, and Damian Priest gets Drew McIntyre and superplexes him off maybe 10 feet into like a couple of tables. It was a wild ass spot. It was in the crowds, off the crates, into the tables, similar to what Sami Zayn and Owens did in Elimination Chamber. And then you follow back up in the ring. It's Jacob Fatu and LA Knight towards the end of the match. They're just going at it, and LA Knight gets him with the BFT, and he's about to get him until Solo Sikoa comes and does what he does best. He pulls the referee out of the ring and takes off the hoodie, and you see that it's no, there was no hoodie. He was in a suit, but LA Knight comes out of the ring and he's like, "Yo, you gotta be kidding me, eh?" He's about to beat up Solo until he gets kicked in the face from someone in the crowd, and the camera pans the face of the guy who just kicked him, and it was Jeff Cobbs from New Japan Pro Wrestling. He's an independent wrestler. I'm not too familiar with him myself, but he kind of looked like Rosie from the Hurricane and Rosie days, if you guys remember that. So yeah, Jeff Cobbs came in and just socked this guy with a kick, and Jacob Fatu didn't seem like he really knew what was going on, so he didn't really like what happened either. He was reluctant to get the pin. He was reluctant to hit it, the running hip attack and the moonsault, and he walked out just disgruntled, and even in the post-show conference, he didn't seem happy about it. He even told us he didn't know what the play was. He didn't know about that play, and you can just tell this is leading to a full-blown face turn from Jacob Fatu. So we're just gonna have to wait and see how they follow up on this Friday. And yeah, I'll give it another 3 weeks before Jacob turns face, because Solo doesn't need Jacob anymore. He has Cobb, apparently. So let's see what this guy's all about this Friday. All in all, I'd give this match a solid 4.5 out of 5. I wouldn't say it was perfect just because I don't know who the hell this Jeff Cobb guy is. And I don't know if it was just me, but because I didn't know who he was, there was this disconnect and it just fell flat. And he didn't exude a lot of personality either, right? It just seemed like one of my uncles was there. So I don't know what was going on. And from what I heard, he's not even Samoan. He's from the Philippines, which is pretty exciting, to be honest. Interesting at the very least. I don't think I've ever seen a Filipino wrestler in the WWE or anywhere for that matter. So I hope he's a traditional wrestler. You know how Samoan have their own traditional moves? I'd like to see what a Filipino traditional fighting style would look like. I swear WWE is just looking more and more like the Street Fighters every single year, man. But yeah, I'd like to see what this guy has to bring to the table. Next up, we had the Women's Intercontinental Championship match between Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch. And I'll be honest, I stepped out for a second and missed half the match. It was pretty short. Lyra kept getting the upper hand on Becky, but Becky would do some wildly veteran moves to get the equalizer. And it ended pretty abruptly. I think right when Becky got the upper hand, Lyra just got her with the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment. She hit her with the roll-up pin and got the win, And it wasn't really much time to digest before Becky, out of frustration, just beat the hell out of Lyra. And that was it. That was just it. It was a very short, very sweet match. I'm curious to see how they follow up on this on tonight's Raw because, well, Lyra hasn't been too exciting since picking up the IC title. And ever since Becky got inserted into that scene, that's when she injected life into Lyra and that grit and edge started showing, right? So I'd like to see the story extend a little further, you know, a few more weeks, maybe another month. I think we could still flush out Lyra's character using Becky before sending them their separate ways. But yeah, man, overall, I'd give it like a C. It was very entertaining for the brief moment it was on. My only legitimate gripe is that it cut a little bit short and abrupt, and that the ending fell flat, right? But honestly, it was a C-grade match for how short it was. The only C-grade match on this entire card. I cannot complain. Next up, we had the Men's IC Championship on the line between Penta and Dominic Mysterio. So for the majority of the match, it was more of the same, you know? It was just them going back and forth. Penta would have largely the advantage throughout the match. I swear, this is the first time I heard it said out loud that Dominic had the best DDT in the game. And, you know, I think they're right, because this guy at one point jumped through the ropes outside, got Penta, and hit him with a spinning DDT right onto the ramp. And I thought that was just spectacular to watch. He's always been smooth in the ring, but now he's just getting more and more of the credit that was due over the last few years. He's really beginning to shine, and the last 4 or 5 years of his career is starting to pay off. He's gonna become a major star, and he's gonna be one of the pillars of the future of WWE. I'm guaranteeing that. Like, I'm not just saying it because John Cena said it. I really think Dominic could be one of the most famous Mysterios, if not the most famous Mysterio going forward. But it would not be a typical Judgment Day match if Judgment Day didn't get involved and some chicanery didn't go down. So eventually the Judgment Day did get involved, and there was this one spot where JD McDonough had Penta grabbed him from behind while Carlito had the ref distracted, and it was on Finn to come and clock Penta, but this guy stalled too long. He was like, oh, hold on, let me go get a chair. Went to grab the chair, and by the time he went for the swing, Carlito couldn't keep the gig up anymore. The ref had turned around and caught Finn Balor, and because of that had banned all of them outside of the ring. You know, they banned them from ringside, and right then Penta had capitalized on all the distraction instead of Dom and gotten Dom in position for his finisher. But when he was going to the top rope, guess who came out? El Grande Americano. He comes out and hits him with the loaded headbutt with the Mexican coin in tow, and clocked Penta, got him down in the middle of the ring for Dom to capitalize on, and he puts Penta away, successfully defending his IC title. You already know what I'm gonna say about this. Anything with El Grande Americano is a 10. So 10 on this. No, I'm kidding, but it was a solid match, you know. It was entertaining, much more entertaining than the women's IC match, and the ending, although it was just bonkers, I thought it was funny because Americano was just posing after the match by the ringside, you know. He's just laid out like a model, and he has his finger on his mouth like shh. So troll match start to finish. I thought it was entertaining as hell. I feel like this entire pay-per-view was just in a pocket dimension. None of it is meant to be taken seriously. This was thoroughly entertaining, even though it had similar chicanery to, I guess, what happens later in the show, which we're gonna get into right now. Alright, so for the last match before the main event, we had Gunter taking on Pat McAfee from commentary. And honestly, you would expect this to be a one-sided beatdown, which technically it was because Gunter was never really going all out. He wasn't trying, but I'll be damned if I said this wasn't like the most entertaining match of the night, man. Like, I always wanted to see Michael Cole in a meaningful storyline as a face, you know, because his shtick as a heel in 2011, all it showed me was that you can have Michael Cole there in a storyline, just don't make him a heel, you know. But yeah, you know, as soon as the bell went off, you had McAfee getting his ass whooped left, right, and center, thrown around and ragdolled. But this guy with his extreme athleticism, on some German suplex attempts, he literally just backflipped and landed on his feet. There were a few times where he would just run up to the turnbuckle, step on one of the steps, like the middle turnbuckle, jump up, and then knee Gunter in the face. He just did random moves that were not orthodox, and because they weren't orthodox moves, it caught Gunter off guard genuinely. But mind you, all the offense that Pat McAfee got, as great as they were, as spectacular as they looked, and out of nowhere as they were, Gunter kicked out at one every time. I'm pretty sure Pat only had one pinfall attempt in the entire match. It was just a tremendous show of heart and dedication and loyalty from McAfee that the entire crowd got behind. Like, this was just so much fun to watch. And at some point, and like Michael Cole in the background was amazing because he was completely biased, and he even warned us beforehand. He was like, for the first time, I'm going to be completely biased. Yeah, sure, first time, Michael, whatever you say. But yeah, he was just there. He's like, come on, Pat. Come on, Pat. At one time, he had him in a Boston Crab, right? Pat was in a Boston Crab by Gunter. And you see Cole like get out of the desk, go to the ringside, and he's just hyping up Pat. He's like, come on, Pat. Just give up, Pat. You've done enough. But Pat just is like, nah. He gets up, he fights, and grabs the rope. There are so many times where he fought back and just purely on instinct, and his instinct was fight mode. You know, he wasn't a runner. That's all the story was conveying. He was just standing up for his friend and wasn't about to let a champion bully him, even if he was Gunter. At one point, he actually gets Pat into a slam position, right? He presses Pat over his shoulder, and Michael comes out of nowhere and grabs onto Gunter's leg from ringside, which causes him to misstep and fall. And Pat lands on top of Gunter and gets a second pinfall attempt. But this time, Michael's grabbing onto Gunter's leg from outside of the ring so he can't grab the rope and he can't move. So unfortunately, it only gets to 1.5 before Gunter does the press up and pushes him out of the pin. And eventually, Gunter just gets him in a sleeper and chokes him out, and that was the end of the match. A surprisingly competitive match for an outcome that is not surprising at all. But I gotta say, the most surprising moment of the entire match, or that segment, was the post-match scene where Gunter's just waiting for Pat to come to and for them to get up on their feet. And in a rare show of respect, Gunter actually applauds them, and they're like, yeah, you know, he bows almost. He does a bowing gesture, and he's like, good job to the both of you. Gives them a thumbs up, and he walks out just smiling. So possible face turn by Gunter, and I'm excited to see that. I'd like to see what a humble Gunter looks like, because he's lost to Sammy, he's lost to Jay, and now he just had a competitive match with not only Pat tonight, but he had one with Otis and with Tozawa earlier on in the year. So I think this is a turning point for Gunter where he realizes he's not just an elite for the sake of being an elite. He became that good because he worked that hard, and I think he's realizing that just about anybody could beat him if they worked hard enough. So all in all, it was an A+ match in my opinion. Everything just fell into place from bell to bell. It was fun all the way through. Every second of it was enjoyable. There was great storytelling by everyone involved. Gunter as the cocky, smug heel. Pat as the resilient babyface, the underdog, Michael as the supportive friend, and even Wade Barrett on commentary. You know, he tried to be impartial, but you can tell he was still biased towards the commentators because he was a commentator himself. So it was great storytelling by everyone involved, solid A effort, solid A grade, and topped only by the main event in my opinion. Speaking of the main event, we're now here at the main event. It's John Cena taking on Randy Orton for the 1,033rd time for the WWE Universal Championship. And let me tell you, even though this was the 1,033rd time, they managed to make this the most entertaining match out of their rivalry yet. You know, at some point it just devolved into a street fight because Cena tries to cheat and hit Randy with the title, but hits the referee right in the head. And Wade said it the best. It was as hard as any title shot can be. You know, you heard the impact, and you hear the referee just roll. You see him roll out of the ring, and at one point Randy gets John outside and AAs him through the announcer's table. And in a funny moment, the table doesn't break until after. So John Cena hits the table, rolls off the table, and then the table collapses, which I thought was pretty funny. And then Randy Orton goes, he's not satisfied because he's like, that's some bullshit. So he gets another table from under the ring and attitude adjustments John Cena through that table, and then hits him with 2 more attitude adjustments. There was even a point in the match when John was about to hit him with the attitude adjustment, and as he's doing it, Randy counters midway and hits him with the RKO, and nobody even knew because nobody covered each other after the AA until they played the replay and you saw that it was a counter. So it was just high octane bonkers from start to finish. And he even, like, at some point, we didn't get the Travis Scott interferences, but we did get the Nick Aldis interference. Not as you might think. He comes in to check up on the referee while Randy Orton hits him with the RKO and tries to pin him. But while he's checking up on the referee, Randy Orton's like, yo, what the hell are you doing? And while Aldis is trying to explain to him, as you can probably guess, he gets RKO'd. And what follows is just like a circus act. So he hits him with the RKO, and he's about to pin him when Nick Aldis comes into the ring to check up on the referee that had previously gotten knocked. And Randy Orton, as you can tell, hits Nick Aldis with the RKO, and then he proceeds to hit all the other WWE officials with an RKO. So for a stretch of 15 seconds, you're seeing 7 or 8 RKOs just back to back to back to back to back. And on top of that, when he sets up John Cena for the punt, because he says enough is enough, he goes to punt him. R-Truth of all people comes into the ring and he's like, yo man, I'm his biggest fan, please don't do this to him in front of me. And he gets RKO'd, and after he gets RKO'd, Randy gets on his feet and he's just yelling at R-Truth while he rolls out the ring. He's like, why did you even come in here? And John gets back up, picks up on the distraction, hits him, I guess, with a low blow, and then an AA, and gets the win. 1, 2, 3. Still your last real Universal Champion. John Cena gets to continue his 17 title reign for a little bit longer. And I gotta be honest, man, this was such a fun match to watch, and I like the pacing of this last match. You really got callbacks to their old rivalry from over the last quarter century. You saw Randy pull out his methodical playstyle where he gets John Cena on the floor and stomps out all his limbs, you know, his knees and his ankles, and he does the DDT. John Cena gets his spots in. Honestly, I know it's not a popular opinion, but I really like face Randy Orton. I like this dynamic. It's so refreshing. Randy Orton got all the face spots in. He even hit John Cena with his own finishing move. John Cena never hit Randy with an RKO. So based on the storytelling, it was very clear that Randy Orton could still go for another decade, while John Cena probably has another 6 months left. That I got was the takeaway. Randy was very clearly outmatching John, but John Cena was just wittier and he was more wily as the veteran, and he just capitalized better. But yeah, all in all, this pay-per-view was just leagues ahead of WrestleMania 41 in my opinion. I feel like this was Triple H's way of apologizing for such a lackluster WrestleMania. And like, now that I've gotten this backlash, like the Saw Backlash, I'd have to go back and revise my review of WrestleMania 41. I feel like it just goes down a grade now because Backlash was so thoroughly entertaining. I had to go step out and grab a beer because of how good it was. I wasn't about to miss the party, bro. Like, that was a very good and very, very good pay-per-view. PLE, sorry. And I think it was great. I'd love to hear what you guys thought. Let me know in the comment section below. And as usual, if you guys like the content I'm pushing out, feel free to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share. If you have any friends who like commentary like this, send them my link. You know, I'm always happy to entertain comments and discussions. And let me know what you guys thought about this pay-per-view down below. Until then, I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and I'll catch you guys next time.